Captain Zephyr's forearms trembled as she watched the tactical display. The red dots representing Krillian warships outnumbered her small patrol fleet by 20 to 1. Her pale blue skin had turned almost white with fear, and her large black eyes reflected the crimson warning lights flashing across the bridge of her ship, the Peaceful Dawn. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the lead Krillian vessel," reported her communications officer, a thin creature with green scales and nervous movements. "They're demanding we surrender the mining station immediately." Zephyr looked through the main viewport at the civilian mining platform floating in the asteroid field. 3,000 families lived and worked there, mining rare crystals that powered half the galaxy's technology. The Krillians wanted those crystals, and they didn't care about the innocent lives in their way. "Send our distress signal again," Zephyr ordered, her voice steady despite her fear. "Broadcast on all emergency channels. Tell them we need immediate backup." The weapons officer, a bear-like alien with thick brown fur, shook his massive head. "Captain, the nearest Alliance fleet is 12 days away. We have maybe 3 hours before the Krillians lose patience and attack." Zephyr knew he was right. The Krillians were known throughout the galaxy as ruthless conquerors. They had destroyed dozens of peaceful worlds, enslaved entire species, and turned once beautiful planets into smoking wastelands. Their ships were massive, armed with weapons that could crack planets, and crewed by warriors who lived only for battle and destruction. Her own ships were small patrol vessels, designed for keeping peace and helping stranded travelers. They had light weapons and thin armor. Against the Krillian war fleet, they would last maybe 10 minutes. "Captain," the communications officer called out, his voice excited. "We're getting a response to our distress call." "Is it the Alliance fleet? Are they closer than we thought?" "No, ma'am, it's strange. The signal is coming from the edge of the system. They identify themselves as a human rescue force from something called Earth." Zephyr felt her heart sink. She had never heard of humans or this Earth place. Probably some small, weak species with a few outdated ships who didn't understand what they were getting into. "What's their fleet strength?" she asked, hoping against hope. The communications officer worked at his console, his green scales shifting nervously. "They're saying 12 ships, Captain. 12 ships total." The bridge fell silent, except for the steady beeping of alarms. 12 ships against the Krillian fleet would be like throwing pebbles at a mountain. But Zephyr was desperate. "Tell them about our situation. Make sure they understand what they're facing. Give them our tactical data on the Krillian fleet." "Yes, Captain. Transmitting now." A few moments later, the reply came back. The communications officer looked confused as he read it. "Their response is unusual, Captain. They said, and I quote, 'Understood. Do not engage hostiles until we arrive. Protect the civilians at all costs. Help is coming.' That's it? No questions about Krillian weapons? No requests for detailed tactical information?" "No, ma'am. Just that they're coming to help." Zephyr walked to her command chair, her mind racing. These humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Probably both. But they were the only help she was going to get. "All ships, defensive positions around the mining station," she ordered. "We hold them off as long as we can." An hour passed. The Krillian ships moved closer, their massive hulls bristling with weapons. Each one was 10 times larger than Zephyr's biggest ship. The lead vessel was a kilometer long, painted in the traditional Krillian colors of blood red and bone white. "Incoming transmission from the Krillian flagship," the communications officer announced. "Put it on screen." The main viewer flickered, then showed the bridge of the enemy ship. Commander Vrak, the Krillian leader, filled the screen. He was enormous even by Krillian standards, with thick gray skin covered in battle scars. His 6 arms ended in claws that could tear through steel, and his mouth was full of razor-sharp teeth. "Little Blue Captain," Vrak said, his voice like grinding stone. You have 1 hour to evacuate that station and surrender those mining platforms. If you comply, we will let your people live as our slaves. If you refuse—" He made a gesture with one clawed hand, slicing across his throat. "The civilians on that station are under Alliance protection," Zephyr replied, proud that her voice didn't shake. "We won't abandon them." Vrak laughed, a sound like rocks falling down a mountain. "Then you will all die together. 1 hour, little captain. Then we turn your ships and that station into space dust." The transmission ended. "Captain," the tactical officer called out, "I'm picking up new contacts on the edge of the system. 12 ships moving fast." "The humans?" "Yes, ma'am. They're moving really fast. Faster than anything I've ever seen." Zephyr watched the display as 12 new dots appeared, racing toward them at impossible speed. Whatever technology these humans used, it was impressive. But speed wouldn't matter against Krillian armor and weapons. 20 minutes later, the human ships came within visual range. Zephyr stared at the screen in confusion. The human vessels were strange-looking, sleek and dark, without the bright colors and decorative elements that most species preferred. They looked dangerous, like they were built for one purpose only: war. "Incoming transmission from the human fleet," the communications officer announced. "Put it through." A new face appeared on the screen. It was unlike any species Zephyr had ever seen. The creature had pale pink skin, small eyes, and no visible natural weapons. It looked soft, weak, almost fragile. But there was something in those small eyes that made Zephyr's scales tingle with an emotion she couldn't name. "Captain Zephyr, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We received your distress call." "Admiral Chen, I appreciate your willingness to help, but you should know what you're facing. The Krillians have 20 heavy warships. They're the most dangerous military force in this sector." The human's face didn't change. "We're aware of Krillian capabilities, Captain. We've studied their tactics and technology. Don't worry about us. Focus on protecting those civilians." "But Admiral, you only have 12 ships. The Krillians—" "Captain," the human interrupted, and now Zephyr could hear something cold in her voice. "You called for backup. We're here. Just keep those families safe." The transmission ended, leaving Zephyr staring at a blank screen. The human had seemed so calm, so confident. Either these humans had incredible weapons, or they were about to commit suicide in the most spectacular way possible. "Captain, the Krillians are moving into attack position," the tactical officer reported. "They're powering up their main weapons. All ships, prepare for—" "Captain," the communications officer shouted, "the humans are engaging." On the tactical display, the 12 human ships suddenly split up, moving in patterns that made no sense to Zephyr's trained military mind. They were heading straight for the Krillian fleet, but instead of staying together for maximum firepower, they scattered like leaves in a storm. "What are they doing?" Zephyr whispered. The answer came 60 seconds later. The first human ship reached the outer edge of the Krillian formation. Instead of the expected exchange of long-range fire, something incredible happened. The human vessel, tiny compared to the massive Krillian warship, simply disappeared from the display. "Where did it go?" Zephyr demanded. "I don't know, Captain. It just vanished from our sensors." Then the Krillian ship exploded, not damaged, not disabled. It simply came apart in a ball of fire and metal that lit up space for 1,000,000 kilometers in every direction. A ship that had taken the combined firepower of 6 Alliance cruisers to destroy in the last major war had been eliminated in seconds by a single human vessel. "Captain, look at this," the tactical officer said, his voice full of awe. "The human ship didn't disappear. It went through the Krillian vessel. Somehow it passed right through their shields and armor like they weren't even there." As they watched, the same thing happened again. And again. The human ships moved like ghosts, appearing and disappearing, passing through Krillian shields as if they were made of paper. Each time a human ship reached a Krillian vessel, the enemy ship died. Commander Vrak's voice filled the bridge, broadcast on all channels. For the first time, the mighty Krillian warrior sounded afraid. "What are these creatures? What weapons are they using? Our shields register no impact, no energy discharge, nothing." Zephyr found herself leaning forward in her chair, watching in fascination as the human ships continued their impossible attack. One moment they were there, the next they were inside a Krillian ship, and then the enemy vessel was nothing but expanding gas and debris. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy fluctuations from the human ships," the science officer reported. "But it's not weapons fire. It's something else, something I don't understand." In less than 10 minutes, half the Krillian fleet was gone. The remaining ships were trying to run, their powerful engines pushing them away from the battle as fast as possible. But the human ships were faster, much faster. "Admiral Chen," Zephyr called out, opening a channel to the human flagship. "What kind of weapons are you using?" The human's face appeared on screen again, and now Zephyr could see she was smiling. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "No weapons, Captain. Just our ships. On Earth, we learned to build things that could survive in places where everything tries to kill you. Our ships are designed to handle the pressure at the bottom of our deepest oceans, the heat near our planet's core, the radiation of our sun. Compared to that, Krillian shields and armor might as well be soap bubbles." As she spoke, another Krillian ship died, crushed from the inside as a human vessel materialized in its core and expanded back to normal size. Zephyr felt her understanding of the universe shift. She had always thought her own world was dangerous, with its acid rains and crystal storms. But these humans spoke of their planet as if it were actively trying to murder them every day. "What kind of world do you come from?" she whispered. Admiral Chen's smile grew wider, showing small white teeth that somehow looked more frightening than Krillian fangs. "A Deathworld, Captain. We call it Earth, and it's been trying to kill us for 3 million years. We're still here. The Krillians—" She glanced at her own tactical display as another enemy ship vanished in a flash of light. "The Krillians are learning what that means." The last Krillian ship, Commander Vrak's flagship, was trying desperately to escape. Its engines were running at maximum power, pushing the massive vessel faster than Zephyr had ever seen a Krillian ship move. But the human ships were still faster. 3 of them caught up to the fleeing warship. This time, instead of passing through it, they attached themselves to its hull like parasites. The Krillian vessel shuddered and stopped, held in place by ships, a tenth its size. "This is Admiral Chen to the Krillian vessel. You have 60 seconds to surrender before we crack your ship open like an egg." Commander Vrak's voice came back, filled with rage and something that might have been fear. "We are Krillians. We do not surrender. We will fight to the death." "Understood," Admiral Chen replied calmly. 45 seconds. What happened next would stay with Zephyr for the rest of her life. She watched as the human ships began to squeeze. The mighty Krillian flagship, with armor thick enough to shrug off nuclear weapons, started to crumple like a paper cup in a giant's hand. 30 seconds! Metal screamed across space as the ship's hull began to buckle. Warning lights flashed on Vrak's bridge, visible through the viewports. 15 seconds! Wait! Vrak's voice cracked. "We surrender! We surrender!" The pressure stopped. The Krillian ship hung in space, dented and broken but intact. "Wise choice," Admiral Chen said. "You'll be escorted to the nearest Alliance prison facility. Try anything stupid and we'll finish what we started." As Zephyr watched the broken Krillian fleet being herded away by human ships, she realized that everything she thought she knew about warfare had just become obsolete. The humans hadn't used superior tactics or advanced weapons. They had simply built their ships to be tougher than anything else in space and then used that strength like a club. Captain, her communications officer said quietly, Admiral Chen is requesting permission to come aboard. Zephyr nodded, still trying to process what she had witnessed. Grant it, and prepare to welcome our rescuers. As she waited for the human admiral to arrive, Zephyr looked out at the mining station. 3,000 families were safe, and they didn't even know how close they had come to death. The humans had saved them all, these strange, soft-looking creatures from a world that sounded like something out of a nightmare. She was very curious to meet them in person, and secretly, she hoped she would never have to fight them. Admiral Sarah Chen stepped onto the bridge of the Peaceful Dawn with the easy confidence of someone who had just saved 3,000 lives before breakfast. Zephyr had expected the human to be larger, more imposing after witnessing her ships crush the Krillian fleet like tin cans. Instead, she found herself looking at a being barely taller than herself, with soft pink skin and no visible natural weapons. Captain Zephyr, Admiral Chen said, extending one of her small, 5-fingered hands. It's an honor to meet you. Your crew showed real courage staying to protect those civilians. Zephyr carefully took the offered hand, surprised by the firm grip. Admiral, what we just witnessed? How is it possible? Your ships passed through Krillian shields like they weren't even there. Chen smiled, and Zephyr noticed again how those small white teeth somehow managed to look predatory. Our ships don't pass through shields, Captain. They pass through everything. It's called phased matter technology. We learned to build it after studying the deep-sea creatures on our world. Deep-sea creatures. On Earth, some of our ocean fish live under pressure that would crush your ship like an empty can. We figured out how to make our hulls shift between different states of matter. Solid when we want to be solid, able to phase through other matter when we need to. The science officer on Zephyr's bridge stepped forward, his scaled face bright with curiosity. But the energy requirements for such technology must be enormous. Chen nodded. They are. That's why we use fusion cores based on our sun's nuclear processes. Each of our ships carries the equivalent of a small star's power output. Zephyr felt a chill run down her spine. These humans carried star-level power sources on their ships like it was nothing special. Admiral, what exactly is your homeworld like? Deadly, Chen replied without hesitation. Earth has weather that can level cities in minutes, oceans that boil with volcanic heat, ice ages that last millennia, and radiation from space that would kill most species in hours. Oh, and asteroid impacts that wipe out entire ecosystems every few million years. How do you survive? We adapt. We build. We refuse to die. Chen walked to the viewport and looked out at the mining station. For 3 million years, our planet has thrown everything it has at us. Plague, famine, natural disasters, ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid strikes. Each time, we survive. Each time, we get stronger. The communications officer interrupted nervously. Admiral, Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Alliance High Command. Put it through, Zephyr ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing the familiar blue-skinned face of Admiral Corvanus, Supreme Commander of the Alliance fleet. His expression was one of complete bewilderment. Captain Zephyr, we've been monitoring your situation. Our long-range sensors detected the destruction of a Krillian war fleet in your sector. Can you explain what happened? Before Zephyr could answer, Chen stepped into view of the camera. Admiral Corvanus, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We responded to Captain Zephyr's distress call and dealt with the Krillian threat. Corvanus stared at the human for a long moment. I've never heard of the Terran Defense Force. What species are you? What government do you represent? We're human. From the planet Earth. We're an independent world, not part of any galactic government yet. We heard the distress call and came to help. You destroyed 20 Krillian warships with 12 vessels? We did. That's impossible. Our tactical computers say it would take at least 60 Alliance cruisers to defeat a force that size. Chen shrugged, a gesture that somehow conveyed vast confidence. With respect, Admiral, your tactical computers have never fought humans before. The bridge fell silent. Finally, Corvanus spoke again, his voice careful and diplomatic. Admiral Chen, the Alliance would very much like to establish formal contact with your government. Perhaps we could arrange a meeting? I'll pass your request along to Earth Command, but I should warn you we're not particularly interested in joining galactic politics. We prefer to keep to ourselves. Of course, but surely you understand the implications of what just happened. A new military force appears from nowhere and destroys an entire Krillian fleet. The balance of power in this sector has just shifted dramatically. Chen's expression hardened slightly. The only thing that's shifted is that a bunch of bullies learned they can't push around innocent people anymore. The Krillians prey on peaceful civilizations because they think they're the strongest things in space. Today they learned they were wrong. But, Admiral, you must understand our position. We need to know your capabilities, your intentions. Our intentions are simple, Chen interrupted. We protect people who can't protect themselves. We stop bullies from hurting innocents. Beyond that, what we do is our own business. Corvanus looked frustrated. Admiral, in the interest of galactic peace and security? Admiral Corvanus, Chen said, her voice taking on a cold edge that made everyone on the bridge step back instinctively. Let me make something clear. We didn't come here to join your politics or your power games. We came because Captain Zephyr sent out a distress call saying civilians were in danger. That's the only reason we're here. I understand, but surely you see that... What I see is that your galactic peace and security couldn't protect 3,000 innocent people from 20 ships full of murderers. Where was the Alliance fleet when families were about to die? Our nearest ships were 12 days away. 12 days. Chen's voice was flat with contempt. We came from outside your galaxy, and we got here first. Zephyr watched this exchange with growing amazement. Admiral Chen was calmly telling off the Supreme Commander of the Alliance fleet like he was a misbehaving child. Corvanus tried a different approach. Admiral, at the very least, we need to register your presence with the Galactic Council. There are procedures. Are there procedures for when innocent people are about to be massacred while the proper authorities are 12 days away? Well, no, but then we're done here. Chen turned to Zephyr. Captain, do you or your people need any further assistance? No, Admiral. Thanks to you, everyone is safe. Good. Chen turned back to the screen. Admiral Corvanus, the Krillian prisoners are in your jurisdiction now. I suggest you find a very secure prison for them. And maybe consider positioning your fleets a little closer to the people you're supposed to protect. The transmission ended abruptly as Corvanus tried to sputter out another response. Chen smiled at Zephyr. Bureaucrats are the same everywhere, apparently. Admiral, Zephyr said carefully, you just insulted the Supreme Commander of the Alliance fleet. Did I? I thought I was pointing out that his fleet couldn't protect the people it's supposed to protect. But the political implications... Captain, let me tell you something about humans. We spent our entire evolutionary history fighting things that could kill us in a dozen different ways. Predators with claws and teeth, diseases that could wipe out entire cities, natural disasters that could end civilizations. You know what we never had to worry about? What? Politics. When a hurricane is coming, you don't negotiate with it. When a volcano erupts, you don't form a committee to study the situation. You act, or you die. That's how humans think. The science officer spoke up again. Admiral, if I may ask, how many humans are there? On Earth? About 12 billion. The entire bridge went quiet. 12 billion members of a species that could build ships capable of crushing Krillian war fleets. Admiral, Zephyr said slowly, if Earth ever decided to expand into space, we won't, Chen said firmly. Earth keeps us plenty busy. Between the hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, plague outbreaks, and asteroid strikes, we barely have time to take care of our own planet, let alone conquer others. But if you changed your minds... Chen was quiet for a moment, looking out at the stars. Captain, humans have a saying. We didn't crawl to the top of Earth's food chain to become vegetarians. But we also have another saying. With great power comes great responsibility. What does that mean? It means we use our strength to protect people who need protection. We don't use it to become the next Krillian Empire. How can we be sure of that? Chen turned to face her, and for a moment, Zephyr saw something in the human's eyes that made her glad they were on the same side. Because we know what it's like to be prey, Captain. For millions of years, humans were hunted by things bigger and stronger than us. We remember what it feels like to be helpless. We won't do that to others. And if someone threatens Earth? Chen's smile returned, but this time it was absolutely terrifying. Then they'll learn why nothing on our planet has managed to kill us yet. A chime from the communications console interrupted the conversation. Captain, we're receiving a priority message from the mining station. They want to thank the human fleet personally. Chen nodded. We'll take shuttles over. I'd like to meet the people we helped save. An hour later, Zephyr found herself walking through the civilian areas of the mining station with Admiral Chen. The corridors were filled with families who had come out to see their rescuers. Children from a dozen different species stared wide-eyed at the humans, while parents bowed respectfully or offered small gifts of thanks. Chen stopped to talk with each family, somehow managing to communicate despite language barriers. She let children touch her strange pink skin and examined their artwork with genuine interest. Watching her, Zephyr found it hard to believe this was the same person who had just crushed a Krillian war fleet. She seemed so... gentle, Zephyr's first officer whispered. All humans are like this with children, explained Lieutenant Torres, one of Chen's officers who had joined them. On Earth, protecting the young is our strongest instinct. It overrides everything else. Everything? Captain, if you threatened one of these children, Admiral Chen would tear you apart with her bare hands, and she'd sleep peacefully that night knowing she did the right thing. They reached the station's central plaza where thousands of civilians had gathered. Station manager Krill, an elderly reptilian being, stepped forward with tears in his large eyes. Admiral Chen, my people and I owe you our lives. The Krillians would have killed us all or enslaved us. How can we ever repay you? Chen looked around at the crowd of faces, all looking at her with gratitude and awe. You don't owe us anything, Manager Krill. Protecting innocent people isn't something you do for payment. It's something you do because it's right. But surely there's something we can do. Some way to honor what you've done? Chen thought for a moment. Yes, actually, there is something. Name it. Keep being good to each other. Keep building, creating, making lives for your families. Keep being the kind of people worth saving. That's the only payment we want. The crowd erupted in cheers. Children from various species ran forward to hug the human admiral, who knelt down to their level and let them swarm over her like she was their favorite aunt. Later, as they walked back to the docking bay, Zephyr found herself thinking about everything she had learned. Admiral, can I ask you a personal question? Sure. How do you do it? How do you stay so human, so caring, after everything your species has been through? Chen stopped walking and looked out through a viewport at the stars. Captain, you know what the worst thing about living on a Deathworld is? The constant danger? No. The worst thing is that it teaches you how precious life really is. Every day you survive is a gift. Every person who makes it through another hurricane, another earthquake, another plague outbreak, they're a miracle. When you understand that, really understand it deep in your bones, you can't help but fight for it. And that's why you came when we called for help? That's why we'll always come. Chen resumed walking, her voice firm with conviction. As long as there are bullies in space picking on innocent people, there will be humans willing to stop them. It's just who we are. As they reached the shuttle bay, Zephyr made a decision. Admiral, I want to make a formal request. What kind of request? I want to visit Earth. I want to see this death world that creates people like you. Chen laughed, and for the first time it was a completely happy sound. Captain, I don't think you're ready for Earth. But if you really want to try, well, we'll make sure you survive the experience. Fair warning, though. Most aliens who visit Earth spend the entire time wondering how we managed to evolve intelligence instead of just really good running skills. I'll take that risk. Then welcome to the beginning of a very interesting friendship, Captain. Just remember to bring a really, really good environmental suit. 6 months later, Captain Zephyr stood on the observation deck of the human starship Endurance, staring at a blue and green planet that looked deceptively peaceful from orbit. Earth hung in space like a jewel, beautiful and serene, giving no hint of the violence that had forged the species now living on its surface. Second thoughts, Captain? Admiral Chen asked, joining her at the viewport. The human looked amused by Zephyr's obvious nervousness. I'm beginning to understand why most species avoid death worlds, Zephyr admitted. Her environmental suit felt bulky and awkward, packed with enough technology to keep her alive in conditions that would kill most galactic citizens in seconds. We haven't even gotten to the surface yet, Lieutenant Torres commented from behind them. Wait until you experience weather. Weather? Earth's atmosphere has moods, Chen explained. Sometimes it tries to freeze you solid, sometimes it tries to cook you alive, and sometimes it tries to drown you or blow you away with winds that can level cities. Today's forecast is actually pretty mild. Only a Category 2 hurricane in the Pacific and some minor volcanic activity in Indonesia. Zephyr's 4 arms trembled slightly. You consider that mild? Category 5 hurricanes are when things get interesting, Torres said cheerfully. Winds over 300 kilometers per hour, waves 30 meters tall, enough rain to flood continents. Beautiful to watch from orbit, though. As their shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, Zephyr got her first real taste of what humans called weather. The small craft shook violently as it passed through layers of turbulent air that would have torn apart most civilian vessels. Lightning flashed around them, electrical discharges that could power a small city crackling across the sky like the planet was angry at their presence. This is normal? Zephyr asked, gripping her seat as the shuttle bucked and rolled. This is actually pretty calm, the human pilot replied. We're not even flying through the storm system. That's about 500 kilometers east of us. Through the viewport, Zephyr could see the minor storm the pilot mentioned. It looked like a massive white spiral that could swallow her entire home planet, rotating slowly across an ocean that stretched beyond the horizon. She began to understand why humans built their ships to be practically indestructible. They landed at a facility called New Geneva, built into the side of what the humans called the Swiss Alps. Zephyr had studied the geographical data, but seeing mountains that rose 10 kilometers into the sky was something else entirely. The peaks were covered in ice and snow that never melted, and the humans had somehow carved their city directly into the solid rock. Welcome to Earth, Chen said as they stepped out of the shuttle. Try not to let the gravity crush you. Zephyr immediately understood what she meant. Despite her environmental suit's assistance, she felt like she was wearing armor made of lead. Earth's gravity was nearly twice what she was used to, and every step required effort. How do you move so easily in this? She panted. Practice, Torres said, doing what appeared to be a small dance just to show off how effortlessly he moved. Human children play in gravity that would cripple most adult aliens. By the time we're teenagers, we're basically walking around in natural power armor compared to everyone else in the galaxy. They took what the humans called an elevator down into the mountain city. Zephyr watched in fascination as levels of civilization flashed past the transparent walls. Humans lived and worked in conditions that most species would consider uninhabitable, deep underground, surrounded by millions of tons of rock that could collapse at any moment. "Aren't you worried about cave-ins?" she asked. "Why would we be?" Chen replied. "This mountain has been stable for millions of years. The only things that could damage it would be a direct asteroid impact or a magnitude 9 earthquake. And those things don't worry you?" "We have contingency plans for both," Torres said casually. "Asteroid impact evacuation protocols and earthquake-resistant architecture that can handle pretty much anything the planet throws at us." The elevator stopped at what they called Level 15, and Zephyr stepped out into a vast underground space that took her breath away. The cavern stretched for kilometers in every direction, filled with buildings, parks, and artificial sunlight that made it seem like they were on the surface instead of deep underground. "This is incredible," she whispered. "This is just one of the residential levels," Chen explained. "We have 47 levels in this mountain alone, housing about 2 million people." 2 million? In one mountain? "Earth is crowded, Captain. 12 billion humans need a lot of space, and most of our surface is covered by oceans that actively try to kill us. We learn to build down instead of out." They walked through streets filled with humans going about their daily lives. What struck Zephyr most was how normal everything seemed. Children played in parks while their parents watched carefully. Vendors sold food from small stands, and people hurried to work or school just like on any civilized world. "They seem so peaceful," she observed. "Humans are peaceful," Chen said. "We just happen to be very, very good at violence when we need to be." A child ran past them, chasing what appeared to be a small ball of light that darted through the air like a living thing. The child moved with casual grace despite Earth's crushing gravity, laughing as she pursued her toy. "That little girl," Zephyr said. "How old is she?" "Maybe 6 years old," Torres estimated. "She's moving like a trained athlete. All human children do. They have to. Earth doesn't make exceptions for age. If you can't handle the gravity, the weather, or the environment, you don't survive to adulthood." As they walked deeper into the city, Zephyr began to notice things that hadn't been obvious at first. The buildings were all constructed to withstand enormous stresses. The windows were thick enough to stop projectiles that could punch through starship armor. Even the park benches looked like they could survive a bomb blast. "You build everything like it's going to be attacked," she observed. "Not attacked," Chen corrected. "We build everything like it's going to face Earth. Hurricanes, earthquakes, floods, blizzards, volcanic eruptions, solar radiation, temperature extremes. Our architecture has to handle all of it." They entered a building that Chen called a school, where human children learned about their world. Zephyr watched in amazement as 6-year-olds studied subjects that would challenge university students on most worlds. They were learning about weather patterns, geological processes, and survival techniques with the same casual attention other species' children gave to simple arithmetic. "Emergency protocols quiz," a teacher announced to her class of young humans. "Category 4 hurricane approaching from the southeast. You have 2 hours. What do you do?" Little hands shot up all around the room. "Secure all loose objects," one child called out. "Move to the reinforced shelter areas," shouted another. "Check emergency supply levels," added a third. "Very good," the teacher said. "Now what if the hurricane is combined with a seismic event?" The children's faces grew serious, but none of them looked frightened. They began discussing evacuation routes, backup power systems, and coordination with emergency services like they were planning a picnic. "They're so young," Zephyr whispered. "They have to learn early," Chen replied quietly. "Earth doesn't wait for you to grow up before it tries to kill you." After the school visit, they toured what the humans called their environmental simulation chambers. massive rooms where they could recreate the conditions found anywhere on Earth. Zephyr found herself standing in a chamber filled with swirling snow and winds that howled like living things. "This is a mild winter storm," Torres shouted over the noise. "Negative 40 degrees Celsius, winds at about 80 kilometers per hour." Zephyr's environmental suit was working at maximum capacity just to keep her alive. Meanwhile, Chen stood next to her wearing nothing but light clothing, seemingly unaffected by conditions that would flash freeze most alien species. "How?" Zephyr asked. "Adaptation," Chen replied simply. "Humans from cold regions develop biological tolerances that let them survive temperatures that would kill people from warmer areas of Earth. We've had to adapt to every extreme our planet offers." They visited a chamber simulating Earth's deep ocean. Crushing pressure, total darkness, and water so cold it would instantly kill any surface dweller. Human technicians worked in the chamber wearing only mechanical suits, maintaining equipment under pressure that would collapse most starships. "The pressure down here is equivalent to having the weight of the entire ocean pressing down on you," Chen explained. "Some humans spend months at a time working in these conditions. For what? Mining, research, maintaining our underwater cities. About 15% of humanity lives permanently on the ocean floor." Zephyr's mind reeled. "Underwater cities? Earth's surface is mostly ocean, and the ocean floor is geologically stable. Plus, it's easier to build down there than to deal with surface weather. Some of our underwater cities house 50 million people." The final stop on their tour was what Chen called the Hazard Management Center, a facility dedicated to tracking and responding to every threat Earth could produce. Massive screens showed weather patterns spanning continents, seismic activity across the globe, and solar radiation levels that fluctuated by the hour. "This is incredible," Zephyr breathed, watching humans calmly monitor disasters that could destroy civilizations. "You track everything?" "We have to," explained Dr. Sarah Kim, the facility's director. "Earth produces an average of 15,000 earthquakes per day, 40 hurricanes per year, volcanic eruptions every few weeks, and asteroid impacts every few months. If we didn't monitor everything, we'd lose millions of people." "And this is all normal?" "This is Tuesday," Dr. Kim said with a smile. "Last week we had a magnitude 7 earthquake in Japan, a Category 5 hurricane in the Atlantic, and a volcanic eruption in Iceland. Just a typical week on Earth." As they walked through the monitoring center, Zephyr watched human technicians coordinate responses to multiple ongoing crises. Forest fires covering thousands of square kilometers, floodwaters displacing millions of people, blizzards that had buried entire cities. Each disaster was handled with calm efficiency that spoke of long experience. "Captain," Chen said quietly, "do you understand now why we responded to your distress call the way we did?" Zephyr thought about it. "Because stopping 20 warships is easier than surviving a Tuesday on Earth?" "Exactly. To us, the Krillian fleet wasn't a terrifying enemy. It was just another problem to solve. We've been solving much worse problems our entire lives." As they prepared to return to the shuttle, Zephyr found herself looking at the human city with new understanding. These people didn't just live on a death world, they had thrived on it. They had taken every attempt by their planet to kill them and turned it into a strength. "Admiral," she said, as they rode the elevator back to the surface, "I have a proposal." "I'm listening." "The Alliance needs people like you, not to join our military or our government, but to teach us. There are thousands of peaceful species in the galaxy who have no idea how to defend themselves. They're sitting ducks for predators like the Krillians." Chen was quiet for a moment. "What are you suggesting?" "A training program. Send human instructors to teach other species how to build ships that can't be destroyed, how to fight back against bullies, how to survive." "And in return?" "In return, the galaxy becomes a safer place for everyone, including Earth." Chen smiled. "I'll pass your proposal along to Earth Command. but I suspect they'll like the idea. Humans have always been teachers. It's one of the ways we survive. We share knowledge. As their shuttle lifted off from Earth's surface, Zephyr looked down at the blue and green world below. It looked peaceful and beautiful, giving no hint of the violence that raged across its surface every day. But now she understood that this violence hadn't created a species of monsters. It had created a species of protectors. "Admiral," she said, "thank you for showing me your world. Thank you for asking to see it. Most aliens think we're crazy for living here." "You are crazy," Zephyr said with a laugh. "But you're the right kind of crazy, the kind the galaxy needs." As they left Earth's atmosphere and headed back to the stars, Zephyr was already making plans. The Alliance would learn from humanity, not just their technology, but their spirit. The galaxy would become a place where bullies like the Krillians would think twice before threatening innocent people, and somewhere in space, a distress signal would be answered by those who had learned from the best teachers in the universe, the survivors of a death world called Earth. 3 years later, the first graduates of the Human Survival Academy would face their own impossible odds against a new threat to the galaxy. But that, as humans like to say, was another story entirely. For now, it was enough that help would always come to those who needed it most. Because somewhere in the galaxy there were humans listening for the call. And humans never ignored a cry for help.